Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. As you can see, another light week when it comes to the YouTube stuff, but it's been a busy week over on the Twitch side. Not to mention with daylight saving, stupid as it is, I'm so tired today. I'm disheveled because I just woke up from a nap not long ago, because I'm like, I need to catch that hour. I gotta catch that hour bad. But it's been an eventful last few weeks in terms of what I've been doing gaming wise. I was actually working on an Elden Ring video, but I will not be finished with it before Strangers of Paradise comes out. And Strangers of Paradise is going to be a a whole heap and heck of a lot of stuff to do over the next few days. So buying plenty of time until 6.1, as you can see with all the games coming out. Although after Stranger of Paradise, I think for me, I think it dies down. I think I'll probably start logging back into 14 a little bit after I'm done with Strangers. But we've got to get through that first. And then I think the crazy gaming season will be done for me, and I can focus a little bit more on the YouTube stuff again, because I am getting that itch to put out a bunch of YouTube stuff, even about games that I don't normally post about. But anyway, with that, let's get through the Q&A. I'm super tired. Nothing to be surprised about there, so I'd rather just blitz through this and then just go chill for the evening. Anyway, but thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. They don't get anything special out of it. You know, all my content's available for free here on YouTube, but they support, so thank you to them. Also to our patrons of darkness, Khuja, Cross on Jenova, and Kurenai Oni, who've gone above and beyond. Thank you to them. And to all of you who tune in every week for the Q&A. With that, let's see what kind of questions that I have to answer. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hope you're well. Thank you. Same to you. I've been playing since 2014, but this is the first expansion where I moved beyond casual content, so sorry if this is a silly question. No worries. In a raid, should Warrior be the main tank over the others, given its ability to self-heal, allowing healers to heal less and make up for Warriors' slightly lower damage with their own? So both tank players are comfortable with either main tank or off tank. You know, that was... So for different reasons, that may have been true in previous expansions, and it's only true here, but it has nothing to do with the self-sustain for Warrior. Warrior is the most powerful defensive tank in the game at the moment. They have a very quick cooldown on their invincibility skill. They have tons of defensive options, and then they do have that sustain, which isn't as relevant. Don't get me wrong, it's relevant. You know, when you pop an equilibrium after something like a tank buster, or during a mechanic that has a lot of movement, so the healers don't have to worry about it. Yeah, you know, that's great. It is super valuable, but it's not. You don't make them the main tank necessarily for that reason as much anymore, because the other tanks handle the main tank role fairly well. It's still very likely to be the option that most parties will run with, though, and given how strong Holmgang is and how you want to get as many of them out of an encounter as possible, yeah, it is very likely to be the decision you make. But yeah, either way, don't worry too much about it, especially if you're doing pug content. Whichever tank steps forward to do it is the tank that can do it. It really doesn't matter to that degree unless you're really trying to squeeze everything out of it. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hi. Hope everything is going well. Just needing more naps. I wanted to ask about the answer you gave regarding going back and trying old ultimates before Dragon Song. Want to see if you could give some more detail. Is it due to strict DPS check difficulty mechanics that would make it hard to do in current content without experience? No, Ultimate's all mechanics. In fact, if you're someone who's experienced in Ultimate right now, it won't be strict at all. Even if you're inexperienced, it won't be very strict right now. Specifically referring to Ukab and Uwu, those two you destroy. As soon as you have a grasp on the mechanics, the DPS, they just disintegrate now with the way jobs are balanced at level 70. T less so, but still definitely on the easier side than it was before. And this is just kind of how, this is the only way Ultimates generally get easier, with experience and with job changes that affect those level ranges in positive ways. The main reason why it's difficult to go back and do is because Ultimates still are inherently the most difficult content in the game. So if you don't know how to do them, that is really the ultimate challenge about it, is learning how to actually do them, because they will just kill you outright if you don't do that. But I don't remember exactly how I worded that answer, so I might not be addressing it the way that I intend to at the moment. So if there's any clarification that's needed, feel free to just throw another question in next week. As for which one's best to go back and try, I think because Ukab and Uwu have suffered, I'll say suffered, yeah, the greatest indignities in terms of how much easier they've gotten with job changes at 70. As much as I normally like to say Ukop is the best one, I think T is probably the best one to go back and do right now. It's a little bit more indicative of, the design of it's more updated. It's 2 years after Ukop came out. So obviously they had tried new things, learned new things, and probably is closer to the experience we'll have. But that being said, Dragon Song Reprise, they're saying is going to be a lot different than the previous Ultimates. Like they said, T was going to be a lot different from the ones prior to it. So that may not necessarily transfer over. The most important thing is learning how to work and progress under more stressful circumstances, and Ultimate is the most stressful circumstance. That experience alone carries a lot more weight than the actual learning of those fights. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. No hello, but I do see I love your little content jingle, so a compliment, I suppose that'll do in place of a hello. That aside, my question for you is, what do you think of White Mage Lilies being made OGCDs? Would that be a bad or good thing? So there's no bad or good. I always like to say when it comes to changing something between being a GCD and an OGCD, people need to understand what the ramification of that is. Obviously, if they were to make them OGCD, then they have to hit the potency, maybe even hit the frequency with which you can actually use them, or they have to make those adjustments in tandem so they can still work approximately the same just as an OGCD. I am actually a bigger fan of them addressing the trade-off for using one of them as a GCD. So what we've seen with some of the other healers that have damaging skills that also heal on the GCD is that they make it so that there is an even damage trade-off for sacrificing that GCD to heal. So basically what that would mean is pressing a Lily would not be a DPS loss, is realistically the change I'd like to see them make, if it's to remain on the GCD overall, like it happens with Macrocosmos, or like it happens with Numa. So I'd like to see that instead, because I think it's an interesting way to move forward with healers. I know people like to say, oh, they're healers, they shouldn't be so worried about DPS, healing's top priority. Yes, but if you can coincide the goals of your healing providing your DPS so that it's kind of like one consistent flow, and that the decision to use those GCDs is one that is an intelligent use of the GCD and not just like whatever I was moving, so I decided to use it. I think that's a more interesting way to address it. So I'd like to see them buff the lilies, or at least buff misery. So every lily you do spend, the misery is at the end of it, makes it so it's damage neutral. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there. Hi. Hope you're ready for SOP tomorrow. Oh boy, am I. I'm very curious what it means by some of your data will transfer over. We don't know what that means, and I don't know why they haven't explained it. Maybe they have explained it and I just missed it. But yeah, it says that some of my progress will carry over. I'm hoping that means all of my job levels stay, and that it caps off on things like upgrade materials or anima shards or things like that. So that way I can't like insta-level the expert jobs. Some people think they're going to reset some of the job levels. Oh, hi, Ivy. How you doing? Some people are speculating. So at this point, I'm just prepared for whatever. If I need to level the advanced jobs again, whatever. As long as I don't have to level absolutely everything again, that would be kind of silly. Or, I don't know. I'm hoping it's just anima shards and crafting materials that are kind of limited on the full game transfer. Anyway, that's not your question. The question should be a quick one. The SOP demo shows us 27 jobs, not all playable. Do you think there will be other jobs at full release? So we've seen the achievement list for Strangers of Paradise, and it would imply that all the jobs we've seen are the jobs that will be available. Now, there is one potential job, we don't actually know if it's a job, that is listed in the achievements, and I'm not going to say what it is because I feel like I don't know, I just won't. But people are wondering if it's a playable job that we just haven't seen in promotional material, some sort of bonus job or something like that. I think it's possible, but I think it's more likely that the achievement that has the mystery job that they haven't spoken about, I think it's going to be used as a sequence. Like it's going to be like the coded name for the job for a sequence where we actually play as the evil Garland. And I think that that's going to be a sequence like mid to late in the game. And that's what the achievement is referring to. So I think that they've shown us all the jobs. I don't think this extra mystery job is going to be one that's permanently playable. But what I do think will happen, while I do think we've seen all the jobs that will be in the game at launch, I don't think there's going to be any bonuses or anything unique that we haven't seen. I do think the DLCs will have new jobs. I actually am kind of hoping to see Summoner, because I want to see what it ends up being like in a game like this. I have a pretty good idea of what they could do for it. Very likely it would just be your different skills are different quick summons that do quick attacks. It kind of the way that I kind of keep falling back on Yuna in Dissidia. And I mean, it makes sense. This team made Dissidia NT. They could do that. They have experience, not to mention Duodecim if you want to dig back a little bit further. So yeah, I could see that happening, but not till the DLCs, not till like, I think Wrath of the Dragon King, it'd be a good time to do that, right? Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hi, hope you're having a good week. Yeah, I'd say it's been pretty good. Just wanted to ask if you're familiar with a good resource to go to for Party Finder strats. There should be Discords. I hate saying that, dude. Discord, the fact that so many information avenues have moved to strictly Discord or YouTube videos. Like, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I make YouTube videos because it is one of the available ways for people to learn stuff. But it's just, I forget what the phrase was somebody said. They were like, Discord has replaced forums, wikis, and I don't remember. There's one other resource. I would say like, Skype or whatever. It's replaced all three of these things, and it's worse than all of them. The Skype thing, that's questionable. I think it might be better than Skype. But yeah, man, so much of that stuff is on Discords, and it's like, oh, would you join this Discord? Join that Discord? Join that? And it's like, bro, I just want to be able to bookmark it. Like, I don't want to have these like 60 freaking Discords that I need to be in because I need one for every single little thing that exists in the universe. Ugh, might as well. Do you think that the different shards all have their own Discords too? The first is just chilling, Reen, LOL, Gaia, stop laughing. Anyway, moving on. I also haven't been keeping up with Party Finder. I mean, I've been playing so many other games in the past month and a half. I actually don't even know what is Party Finder's standard at the moment. It seems to be hard to find out what Maxwell's. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Maxwell's a character in Triangle Strategy. That's all I know about it. I don't know anything about Maxwell's strat for that. What happened to Pastebin? Is Maxwell's stuff Pastebin stuff? I don't know. I don't know anymore. I haven't kept up with it. Shows just for Act 2, but even one I found aren't great for learning. What happened to Pastebin? NA Party Finder. Listen. I just get a macro for every fight. And then just share it. Don't paste spin this stuff. Just find a better way. Okay? We need a better way. Just get macros, please. If everyone knows the macro, and then if people don't know the strat, then someone post the macro. And that's it, and you're good. Or you like put, I don't know. I hate the Party Finder, man. I hate that. It feels like we're devolving in the Party Finder of like how people communicate this kind of stuff. But yeah, I know the answer is there's a Discord out there. There's like a Party Finder Discord for each of the data centers, and that is where it is. I couldn't tell you what they're called is the problem. So I would try looking for your data center, so Ether Primal, whatever, Party Finder Discord, and then look in the strategy section there. I couldn't tell you where to find them or what they're actually called if they're just called that. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hello. Hi. I noticed a lot that even 2 months into the tier of P3S, and in particular the ad phase, seemed to be the wall that Party Finder struggles with most. Why do you think it's the case? So, well, P3S, first of all, the most straightforward answer, the third fight in a raid tier is always the biggest jump in difficulty. P3S, no exception to that. So that's going to happen in most tiers, unless a third fight is so poorly designed. I was going to name a specific tier, and then I realized that was a lot of tiers last expansion. Yeah, so that's a big reason. Now, the ad phase, it's always surprised me that the ad phase is what it is. I find a lot of the time what I see in Party Finder is you have like weird random deaths in phase 1. People carry weakness into ads and get behind. And then for some reason, like a tank dies to like an auto attack because the healers are trying to DPS, or somebody can't do the dashes and you lose 1 or 2 people and then you're behind the DPS check the whole time. It's a very weird number of mistakes because it is by far the most straightforward phase in the entire encounter. Now, some of it is also the phase's DPS check is not tight. That being said, players that are not contributing well, they are showcased more during that ad phase because it is such a short time to defeat each of the birds or all of the birds before they enrage. If people are not carrying their weight or do not know how to carry their weight in that phase, it really shows. And the Party Finder is, well, it's a mixed bag of individuals and skill levels and personalities and all that junk. So I think those are the two biggest things. It's the fact that it's the third fight, And it's the fact that people who kind of only barely got through the first two drag people down a lot going into the ad phase, because it is just a short requirement of DPS that they just can't operate well within. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hey, hi. How you doing? All right. Hope you're doing well. All right as well, I suppose. I've been listening to all the State of the Realm starting from episode 1. Jesus. Salute. Got a question about the Heavensward era. Savage at the time took several weeks to down the tier. Was this as hard as Ultimates now? No. It was gear gated to hell. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One, Coil did not do difficulty or difficulty scaling very well at all. All 3, and I'll include 4 for the one Savage tier that existed in Coils with second Coil, they didn't really know how to do fights as well back then. First Coil is just a hodgepodge of ideas, and then Twintania happens, and that was a disaster on launch. Second Coil, a lot of really cool ideas, a lot of memorable fights, but they're very disjointed in their design, you know, bad phase skips or phases that don't carry over knowledge from previous phases. So essentially it's like just learning something that's none of your practice skills up to that point really assist you in that. And then they also didn't know how much gear they wanted people to have for them. So some of them require a decent chunk of gear. Some of them don't require as much gear, or based on people's skill level at the time, felt like they did or didn't. And then Final Coil, you know, kind of was that leveled out, you know, like, okay, this is a pretty well put together tier. The difficulty is fine. The gear scaling is fine. You can beat it in less than a week, but, you know, having more gear helps. And, you know, as groups get through, I'd say Final Coil is really where I felt like they nailed it, but it was also on the easier side. So then Savage came out with Alexander, and they just cranked it up to 11. You needed like I would say the gear gating was bad, but realistically it was our perception of the game at the time was still kind of, we hadn't been not many people had been challenged to that level. Unless you did Savage second Coil, you really hadn't been challenged to the level that Alexander brought. But the gear scaling was super tight. The DPS checks were super tight. There was literally zero room for error. The encounters themselves, 1 and 2, 1 is actually still an okay encounter. I think that was a relatively good first encounter, even looking back to this day, comparing it to today's standards. 2 was whatever, it was a gimmick fight. No one really cares about it to this day. 3 is where most people will laud that it was fantastic, and I still agree. As a fight, it doesn't really stand out as any more challenging or unique when you look at what we're doing today, but when you combine it with the gear scaling and the skill level of the player base at the time, it really does kind of stand on its own on a whole different ball game. And the Manipulator was just poorly designed, poorly scaled. People had to glitch it to beat it normally because it was just it was way too ridiculous. It was boring. It was all sorts of words that I have about that encounter. So a lot of it is just a mix of the times and the gear scaling, but the encounters themselves are nowhere close to an Ultimate's difficulty. The closest thing you get is Brute Justice in A8S, which was, I'll say yeah, pretty much was Ultimate level, especially for the very, very last phase, where you had to do, you know, you had to stack people under the boss, and you had to make sure it was the right number of people, but there was also a split damage AoE, so you needed people on the edge of that in order to split the damage, but not inside of it as to cause the explosion to go off, while also dodging a chakram while somebody's baiting a tornado, which then you have to bait a jump and bait this and bait that. Yeah, but it was like a minute of like Ultimate level difficulty versus an Ultimate level encounter. So I don't think anything even remotely compares from back then to now outside of the gear scaling that we had at the time. Hashtag MHM. You know what? I respect the abbreviation. Top of the morning, Mr. Hap. Hope this day it finds you well. Hopefully it does. It's the day before SOP when you guys see this, so I'll say I say day before, but I might actually stream it at midnight, which would be midnight Eastern, because I think I just checked it before we started, and technically becomes available at 9 p.m. Pacific that night. I might do an overnight stream for that game. Like I might do like a 12 to like 16-hour stream the day it comes out. We'll see. I need to make that decision quick because I am, well, it's already 7:30 p.m. as I'm recording this the day before, so I should probably decide whether or not I'm trying to wake up at 8 p.m. tomorrow so I can be live for the 9 p.m. launch. Probably be a good idea. I think I'll probably do that. Anyway, moving on. First time asker, so it's time to bring back the bonuses and enjoy a custom hand-stitched blitzball. No, take it back. What's your favorite dinner hotspot? If you've yet to check out Bandera, okay, a couple things. One, I very rarely eat at chains. Chains, fast foods, or even chains that are like sit-down restaurants, I very seldom eat at them. Maybe like a Ruth's Chris or something like that would be a chain that I would go to on not even on the regular, but like something that I would consider. I don't like look at it and go, oh, it's a chain, I won't eat there. But in terms of, so I'm not going to name the spot because I like spots that are not parts of chains, which means I'd have to dox myself to tell you about them. What I will say is the types of foods I like to go to. I generally like, how would I describe it? Well, sushi's a big one. That's whatever. As long as it's decent quality sushi, and in California, a lot of it is very good quality sushi. I'm okay with that. But in terms of like actually going and having a favorite spot, I'm gonna go with Korean food. Any form of Korean food just is such a comfort to me. And I'm not just talking about like Korean barbecue, like the traditional or something like that, or anything that's super normal. I'm talking about like a proper Korean location that sells like a yukgaejang is one of my favorite like foods, period. It's a hot and spicy beef soup, a Korean beef soup. And I could destroy that any day. I'll just oh, it's so good. So yeah, I'm gonna go with traditional Korean cuisine as what I would kind of say is my favorite thing to get. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hello, Happy. Hi, I said happy. Don't know why. That's how tired I am. I hope you're doing well. Same to you. I started playing 14 and watched your channel mid Shadowbringers. First time asking. Welcome. I'm glad to see you're asking. I have 3 questions about Scholar and Healer. So I'm not a Scholar or Healer expert. I have healed like Savage content and a little bit of Ultimate, not a whole lot. So, but just letting you know, grain of salt, you're not speaking to an expert on the topic, so I'll do my best to convey. 1, is Scholar Energy Drain and Dissipation a must-use? I will say that if your goal is to push out damage, one of the key things you learn as a Scholar right now is almost certainly how to use Energy Drain efficiently. You need to know when you can actually spare for an Energy Drain just to increase your damage versus when you are going to need Soils here or an Excog here, things along those lines. And even then, you still have Recitation, so learning when to use that on the heal so that you can then use it for something else, whether it be an energy. That's basically the highest level of understanding of the job that you can possibly have. Now, Dissipation, I will say, regardless of what reason you're using it, learning to use all of your job skills is going to be important. And Dissipation is no different than that. In your opener, Dissipation can be more energy drains if you don't need them for anything else. In the middle of a fight, Dissipation can be a panic use of it can be panic uses for your ether flows. Whether or not they be for energy drains is a different story. But getting sometimes that extra healing or or those specific uses of the ether flows can be life saving. So yeah, that's what it is. You just need to understand them and yes, learn how to use them. That's probably among the more important things you could go out of your way to do. 2, getting purple healing most of the time and the other healer getting gray. So sometimes I feel like I'm healing faster. I have trust issues with the co-healer. So how do I want to put this? You do not want to have, God, I don't want to say you don't want to have a good healer parse, but having a good healing parse is not as indicative of how well you're doing or how well you understand the job as it is comparing it against your DPS parts. Like you need both of them in tandem. So like if the healer is a gray level healer and has a 99 percentile in DPS, but you have a purple in healing and maybe like a blue in DPS, that might mean that you're covering too much for them. It might not even be trust issues. It might be down to just you are doing too much. And there needs to be a better balance of it. Like they may not be using OGCDs well because they're so focused on pumping their actual damage skills. So they're just not pressing OGCD. There's the problem with logs is people want to look at just the percentile, just the number, and try to come to a conclusion. That's why I'm already telling you to like look outside of just the color of your parse. You need to understand what those logs mean by comparing what they look like to each other and what they look like to other people who are playing at a higher level. And it's always going to be the best way to try to understand what the numbers mean or what actually should change or could change, or in some cases with some statics need to change. So this is so case specific that me just hearing that you have purple healing and they have gray is not enough for me to make an actual judgment of what that means. And 3, healer damage and enrage. How much can you blame a green healer gets on Enrage if they're pretty busy, like E11S. So being a green healer, so again, there's dynamics here that you're focusing too much on the color of the parse and not on the overall picture. Because I don't know if that green healer is green because, for example, maybe other people are dying and screwing up. Maybe they're a green DPS healer because, again, the other healer is literally not pressing OGCDs and they have to spend GCDs to cover that. There's too much information that's missing, and I encourage anyone using FF logs to not just look at your color of your parse. You need to look at the encounter log, the whole log, and look at what's happening. Is there like a Dragoon that's got a 9 percentile on the wipe, for example? Is one tank vastly overperforming the other tank? There's so many little elements that go into what information is relevant from a parse that I cannot give you a fully, because it doesn't matter how busy you are in E11. It's all that matters is what the end result is. Do you have less gear than the people who are uploading parses? You know, what are other parses that with similar gear levels to you, which is not easy information to glean, but I mean, you can kind of tell when it's down to gear versus performance by comparing parts. All I'm telling you is look at what the high tier parses are doing. Look at how many actions they're casting. Look at what actions they're casting. Use that information instead of just going, oh, I'm green, or this person's green, or this person's gray or purple or whatever. Because you can clear with things like that in a group. If the group is still, oh my God, Ivy, I'll let you out in a second. If the group is still working coherently enough. So there's just too many, we're cherry picking too many details for me to actually make an analysis of this. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hi. First time, I almost said Heps again. Maybe that's my name now, Happy. First time asking a question, but long time subscriber. Hope you're doing all right. Hope you're doing all right too. Anyway, my question is a bit of a throwback. Whatever happened to the Warrior of Light's original party? The one that is with him in the Realm Reborn trailer gets teleported with Louis Soir. So, couple of things. One, that is initially just indicative of the adventurers that you're playing with. There's the idea that there are other people who are teleported forward in time. They're not, for us in the source, specific people. Now, in the first, they obviously recreate that party with the Warriors of Darkness. And so that is an homage to the initial trailer. Those aren't the same characters in that trailer as the characters that I guess you're asking about. You know, they're references more than anything to that initial trailer. But they are not specific individuals. They are other Warriors of Light who were at the Battle of Cartno. The idea being, of course, being an MMO, we were probably not the only person who were teleported forward in time. You know, we went with a band of fellow adventurers, a band of fellow Warriors of Light, a band of fellow Echo-blessed individuals that were part of that battle. So that's all it is. They're not very specific characters or any sort of major relevance to the story. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. I hope you're doing all right and getting so much chance. Yeah, like I said, disheveled for that reason. Thank you. I have 2 questions for you today. One a little personal, so feel free to skip if you're not comfortable. All right, well, it'll probably be on screen if I if I don't want it. Well, I mean, honestly, I probably won't even. You won't be hearing this because I'll just like re-record this and be like, oh, they said if it was personal, and then I decided I didn't want it. All right, so number 1, I apologize if you answered this before, but when did you meet your significant other? In this week's episode, you expanded upon your social anxiety. Really curious how that reflected. Oh, I met her online. I met her actually playing Ragnarok Online 2. I shit you not, the only good thing that came out of that game was her. And that's, I guess that doesn't really surprise anybody. But I know some other people, I actually know other couples that met specifically playing Ragnarok Online 2. Weird. We were all like, man, they keep giving us the wedding dresses and the tuxedos, and I guess we really better date. You know, I guess that's just how it has to be if that's what they're gonna gotcha us right on the release. So yeah, that's where we met. Obviously we met there, but our friendship continued well past that game, and then obviously we've been together for several years now. And 2, and also when it comes to social anxiety, if I'm gonna, I've been doing online dating for quite some time at that point. Not normally through Ragnarok Online 2, but that had been how I had been overcoming social anxiety for meeting people at the time. 2, a little more simple one here relating to 14. What are your 3 favorite blue spells, either because of potency, spell animation, flavor, or spell name? Man, that's tough. There's a lot of blue spells, man. Man, I feel like it's cheating because I just want to say all the there's like a bunch of primal spells that just kind of automatically take the cake. Tsukuyomi's one, whatever that was called. Ravana's one, and like Justice Kick or whatever, or J Kick or whatever they ended up calling it for that. I don't know. Blue Mage is just fun sometimes, man. I just like playing Blue Mage occasionally. I want more Blue Mage stuff. I really, really do. That's really what I want. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello. I don't want to read that. I can see that the rest of this is normal talk. I don't want that on the internet. Past the hello that I said, I don't want to do the rest. My question for this week is the following. What would you consider to be some red flags when being recruited into a static or recruitment post? Personally, I had a bad habit of being told I'm not good enough to join any static for Endwalker. I ended up party finding my whole way up to P4S week 1. I want to finish P4S. So that specific statement, not good enough, either comes from a mix of parses or previous like track record. Like if you've never raided before, people would see that and be like, oh, you're not what we're looking for. But I can't know which one that is. And if you've already been party finding them, I would assume that at least the well enough, it's not an actual issue of you're not being good enough, because you just don't get to P4S week 1 if you're not good enough. P3S will hard stop you. And it will hard stop you. If the other 7 people in your party are good enough to beat it, you will very likely be the reason you don't beat it that week if you are the problem. So that's a big thing. I want to finish P4S, so I'm ready for the new Ultimate when it comes out. But just recently, my application got rejected because my parse for P3S week 1 shows everyone in my group is gray. Okay, I'm going to tell you this right now. So red flags. If a red flag is if they use a week 1 clear parse when it's week 12. That is a red flag, because that means they literally don't know how to use FF logs at all. So I like to say those are bullets avoided. But again, I'm only working on what you're telling me. So that's, I always like to say on the internet, I take everything with a grain of salt, because people tell me, oh, this is my experience with this. This is what happened. I go, we'll see. I don't know how else to really put it. So, yeah, but in the case that is exactly as you've described, if it was your week 1 parse that didn't get you into a static 13 weeks into the tier, then either that group is you're better off having avoided it, or I'm missing information here. So, wait, I got accused of messing with ACT to make a wipe into Achilles. Man, I don't think you could do that cleanly. I think it'd be too obvious if you actually did that. But that's weird. Make a wipe into a clear. That would be impressive. If you did do that, I'd almost be impressed. Essentially just modifying a text file before uploading it. But either way, that could be a lot of work, given that you'd have to have all of the parse perfectly replicated to get you to the point where it actually flags it as a clear. That's a lot of fucking work. You'd have to know 8 different jobs and how much time. Wow, yeah, that would be a heck of a time. Would you say that I could try doing Ultimate on release? Yeah, anyone. As long as you have the ability to do it, yeah, no problem. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hi, Happy. What's cooking? Tonight, I am doing teriyaki marinated shrimp, baked shrimp, I'm going to do tonight. I have some leftover couscous and some asparagus I'll eat with it. That'll be fine. What do you need to get more Aloha and Ivy shenanigans in these Monday Q&As? Apparently them to be in my office. They have both been removed from the office and the door is closed at the moment, so there will be no more shenanigans this week. But they just have to be present and sleeping when I start the recording, and then wake up in the middle of the recording. That generally accomplishes the task. 2, how would you describe the gameplay of Strangers of Paradise? It's like Neo. I would say it's a stamina-based action game, very fast-paced, loyal to some of the Final Fantasy systems with a looter aspect to it. It's not anything like DMC. It's not anything like Sekiro or Bloodborne or Dark Souls, Demon Souls, any of those. The team that made it, Team Ninja, is very well known for making the old Ninja Gaiden 3D remakes, and there are a lot of similarities to that even. But more recently, the Neo series, Neo 1 and 2, which are both very much loved games. There are some animations even kind of lifted right from Neo 2 if you've actually played that. So it is a lot of it's kind of like Neo gameplay, Neo style stuff with a Final Fantasy skin and Final Fantasy flavor, which I look forward to because, like I said, Neo's great, and giving it the kind of flavor that I kind of lean into in terms of fandom. I just can't go wrong with that. So yeah, you're right that Souls combat's it's usually slower, less flashy, and more methodical. This can be quite methodical, but it is much faster paced. So you are kind of rewarded for learning how to stay hyper aggressive in a game like this. All right, we're getting past like the 35-ish minute mark, and you can hear my voice is kind of starting to because like the more I talk, like my congestion builds up. in the back, and then my voice kind of starts to go a little bit. So I'm gonna lightning around the rest just because of that, because you can, like I said, you can already hear it. So anyway, what's it called? There's comments. All right. Okay, here's another question. Hey, hope all's better. Played 14 on console. Been listening to my questions. Did you know that console players can set up mouse and keyboard? Yeah. I think it's a little awkward to do unless you happen to have your console at a desk properly. Most of the people I know who do play on console, they'll plug in a keyboard to communicate, or they'll like use Discord on their phone or something like that. But a lot of the people I know don't have like a desk setup like I do for their console. It is in a more recreational area. So that's the only reason why it's not my first jump to, because I find that's true for a lot of people. And so that should be fine. But and also it's a matter of play style. Even if they can plug in a keyboard and mouse, they might prefer to play with controller. They're not going to use the Thunderclap macro. They're not going to swap just to make that macro. You know what I mean? They'll find other ways to work around it and play with it. Fairly new to 14. You cannot shake the feeling Shadowbringers dungeons are quite hard in comparison to every other dungeons. Really? I don't. I just disagree with that assessment. Having been there through even the balancing that the one dungeon we had at the media tour versus what the live dungeon was actually like versus the way the Endwalker live dungeons. No, I don't feel like they're any different. I mean, there's still big pulls in Endwalker that'll kill you if you do them wrong. There were big pulls. I feel like every dungeon I've done for the past 4 or 5 years. But like you said, you're relatively newer, so the perspective just is probably a bit different. But no, I don't agree with that opinion or assessment, I suppose. Some people commenting on the "why do you own cats?" That was weird last week, man. I see a lot of crazy comments. Somebody even said you see a lot of crazy comments every week. It's I see a lot of stuff. I've learned to laugh about a lot of it, but sometimes it comes off a little immature to laugh about some of the things that I see, because it's just my mind is so blank after all the years of doing this, man. So many of the comments that I read, I almost can't maintain a professional composure because I've just seen so much. It goes from like, oh my God, how can anyone say this about me in the early days? That like almost narcissistic tendency to be like, everyone needs to accept me. Everyone needs that. People are telling me that I'm good, so I must be good, or like not trying. That was me in the early days. It's just a lot of like people telling me, like putting me on a pedestal and me just kind of being like, yeah, until I kind of had to humble myself through just the experiences that I had to like, okay, let me try to maintain professional composure because I'm reading a lot of things that are just like, oh, there's those same things, but I don't need to react to them, to like devolving into, dude, I've been doing this shit so long. I'm just straight up Lethal Weapon. I'm too old for this shit now. I just got to call it as I see it. It's just this like roller coaster of emotion and professional courtesy and whatnot that I've just had over the years. Some comments on playing with ADHD. Yeah, like I said last week, I'm not an expert or professional in that. In any capacity, as like I said, it's not something that I deal with. So hopefully there is more advice here from other people who have more hands-on experience with that. Then there's why do I see everyone playing Elden Ring and not Horizon Forbidden West? So a couple reasons. One, Horizon Forbidden West, PlayStation exclusive. Obviously, that's always going to be a hindrance in terms of the number of active people. And Elden Ring was just kind of better hyped, I feel, over the years. It was one of those games you didn't see a lot of, so people kind of fell into that, oh, is it ever going to come out? When realistically, it had only been like 16 months or something since we had heard about it. And when we did hear about it again, it was like, by the way, here's when it's releasing. We're like, I like that. So it's available on 5 different consoles. Well, is it available on PS4 and Xbox 360? I don't know, actually. Well, it's available on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. So the fact that it's on a bunch of different platforms is a big, big boon to that. But also, it's just such a more, like, FromSoft has just built this hype machine. They could do no marketing, ever. And it wouldn't matter, because it's a Souls-like. It's made by them. They have that status in the industry now, where they don't make, even the worst of the Souls games is still like better than most games, or at least is more revered by a large number of people, I'll say, because opinions have to factor into that, than a lot of other franchises and studios and games. Nothing against Horizon Forbidden West. It was just up against a monolith that nobody could possibly compare to. And even Elden Ring has kind of transcended that to a whole nother level, because it has shown people that an open world game, even if you want to reuse assets or have dungeons that are similar, that just use, you know, like catacombs and graves and tunnels, that you can make them stand out as experiences people remember. They don't have to just be this filler dungeon to sate your desire to explore the world. And on top of that, because you're always at risk of majorly getting destroyed by enemies in that game, it doesn't matter what corner you're turning around, you're equally as cautious as you were for the previous corner. So that really lends itself to the open world environment that Elden Ring has created, even if you can get around it pretty quickly by just running through stuff with the horse. Then a real question. Oh, that wasn't even your real question. I just, you know what, though? It was a good conversation. I'm glad that we had it. How do totems work fresh? What do you mean? I mean, you just, everybody, when you clear, everyone gets a totem. Everyone can buy a weapon with their totem. But it is weekly locked out. So that's all that it is. Oh, that was your question. Yeah, I looked all the way at the bottom. Yeah, one ultimate totem a week, and everybody gets one. So everybody gets a weapon every week. I've got a cat problem I'd like your advice on. My cat suddenly stopped playing with toys that they can enjoy alone. So my cats have never really liked playing on their own unless I leave something dangling. And we can't leave things dangling anymore because Aloha, I left something dangling for him. It was a little mouse toy. He ripped it off the string, swallowed it, and we had to go get an endoscopy. Is that what it is? Endoscopy? Yeah, we had to go get him an endoscopy, a very expensive endoscopy at one point last year. Because we're trying to leave him alone to play with toys. I just spend more time with my cats is what I try to do. Yeah, for 3 hours at a time. Yeah, I've learned when to say no to my cats is the big thing. The biggest problem with cats is you do want them to... Oh, speaking of which, Mel's DMing me. Why is he throwing up again? Oh, speaking of cats, he probably just ate too fast and threw up or coughed up a fur ball. Whoop-de... Yo, you did this. You actually willed this into existence. Because this is your fault and I'm blaming you for it. So I'm going to have to, now I'm really going to have to wrap this up quickly and go deal with that. Thank you for that. Yeah, I just spend more time. If they want 3 hours, too bad. You give them 15-20 minutes. And if they complain, then you just stop giving them attention altogether. You have to stop giving cats attention whenever they want it, because if you do that, they'll think that they can always get attention. So that's definitely the biggest problem with it. So, just give them a little bit of time and then stop. And then eventually they get used to that amount of time and it helps. So there's that. I think I am actually getting close to the bottom because I'm seeing a bunch of like good mornings, love your cats, crosswalk situation that I talked about last week. Yeah, the anxiety comments and whatnot. Then we have... Oh, there is actually a question here without a hashtag. I was playing around in Chocobo Companion menu. Notice Chocobo icon can be moved. They were actually initially planning more companions, but they abandoned that. They said that in A Realm Reborn that our Magitech mount was going to be a companion, and then they never did it. You heard any news about they're planning on releasing Beastmaster? I mean, they never said they were releasing Beastmaster in the first place, so there's no way to have news about that. You know, everyone would know. That wouldn't be something only I know if it was to be the case. Let's see. I like Mr. Happy and all, but I like how there's people ironically asking, why does he have cats now? Ever raise the ceiling of A Realm Reborn maps? No. There's no point. We're lucky they even have flying, so no, they're definitely not going to go back and raise the ceiling on them. For a second, I thought you meant treasure maps, and I got really confused, but then I realized what you actually meant. And then there's some comments about, like, discussion about Destiny raid design versus 14 raid design. That's fine. That's why it's opinion. I like comments like that where someone's like, see, the way you feel about that is the way I feel about 14 raids. And it's like, that's the beauty of the internet, is that we can both have opinions. And this person respects that. And that's why I respect the person who I'm not, obviously, like I said, my cat just threw up, so I don't want to spend too much more time. But I respect that that person is able to maintain an online. So you know what? That person who's talking about the Destiny raid designs because they feel similarly about 14, I respect you, because you keep it cool, and on the internet, we don't get that very often. So you get mad props. And yeah, that was actually the last question. Somebody, I forgot I mentioned Sultan Sanctuary last week. I loved Sultan Sanctuary. I never finished it because other games started coming out, but Sultan Sanctuary was a good game. Anyway, I need to go clean up cat vomit, so let me wrap up this video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. Ask your questions for next week's episode. And thank you to everyone who asked a question for this week's episode. I'm going to go clean that up and then eat right after. Whoop-de-doo for me, I suppose. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you all next week. Hopefully you enjoy Strangers of Paradise. Maybe I'll upload some stuff for it this week. But either way, thanks, and I'll see you later. Until then, bye-bye. Get out of here.